takeover of rural Maine by Chinese drug cartels. I'll just stand back and let you describe the scale of this and what it is.
Well, I mean, it's shocking. I would say there's probably 300 to 400 properties throughout the state of Maine that are under the control of what the Department of Homeland Security under President Biden called Asian transnational criminal organizations. Chinese mafia, I think, is a better term and an easier way to understand it. This first came to light in the end of 2023 when a reporter from the Daily Caller News Foundation, Jenny Tare, who's a fantastic reporter, got a leaked memo that said, hey, there's 270 plus of these sites in Maine, and there's another 800 in other parts of the country, and that caught my eye. I grew up in Maine, spent my whole life in Maine, and I figured if there were 270 sites in Maine where this criminal activity was occurring, I would be able to find it. And so I contacted Jenny and I worked with her and eventually got more information about some of these sites that she knew about, identified the property owners, and we visited some of the sites, started identifying some of the patterns. And I basically looked at every mortgage record for the past 6 or 7 years in every county in the state of Maine, and all the electrical records for electrical upgrades for commercial grade power, which is required for these marijuana grows, some other financial records and mortgage documents, and was able to identify well over 300 Chinese marijuana grows, unlicensed, operating in the state of Maine, just from looking at records and piecing the puzzle together, and then decided I need to go visit them to see what the story is and to confirm it. And so I drove, easily 10,000 or more miles around the state of Maine, to very, very distant, remote places, schools, factories, former shoe factories, former scrap metal yards. There's
the detritus of the industrial economy.
Yeah. There's one of these next to my high school basketball coach's house. One of these next to, the guy who ended up marrying my high school girlfriend. He's got a Chinese marijuana grow next to him. There's a Chinese marijuana grow next to the first place that I got drunk with my high school friends. There's a Chinese marijuana grow on my camp road that has since been busted. There's a Chinese marijuana grow on my dad's road in St. Albans. They're everywhere. They're in former schools, former nursing homes. And we were able to find them. It was easy to find. And it turned out that one of the first things I would do when I showed up and scoped something out, you can smell it. You can see the upgraded electrical work. You can see the license plate out front from New York City. And you go and you talk with the neighbors, and the neighbors, you just knock on the door and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your neighbors. And they kind of get this look in their eye like, finally somebody wants to come hear what we've been going through and what we've been seeing. And they're eager to share their story. And the story is always that in the middle of COVID, a young couple that spoke decent English, were of Asian descent, showed up, bought the house, came over, introduced themselves, gave them a bottle of wine or a bottle of cognac, and introduced themselves and said, we're getting away from Boston or we're getting away from New York because of COVID. And, this is just going to be our family getaway. And then they never saw that couple again. And from then on, it was a steady stream of other individuals of Asian descent who did not speak English, were not personable, seldom left the house. And every 30 to 40 days, a U-Haul would arrive, usually at dark hours, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and be there for about an hour and leave. And then there obviously was the smell of cannabis, very pungent, and all the windows blacked out, and the electrical work, and odd chemicals being dumped in the backyard, and some other indicators. Sometimes they would burn to the ground because they were trying to pass through too much electricity through. But it was a period of 7 or 8 months I spent driving all around the state of Maine and seeing story after story after story, and interviewing all of these people and seeing how scared people were, how terrified people were, how well known the story was amongst people.
Why were people afraid?
They were, for a number of reasons, I think. I think there were some people who were afraid of being called racist. If they were...
Everyone in Maine is afraid of being called racist, yeah. I've noticed. It's the main weakness of the state.
Which is what I found was the exact opposite. I found that they were willing to tolerate behavior from their Chinese neighbors that they would never have tolerated from Irish or French or English neighbors. Like absolutely, illegal dumping, breaking the transformer every other week and causing blackouts in the neighborhood. They would never have tolerated this behavior from white neighbors. But because of this inclination to not be smeared as a racist, they were willing to tolerate it. But they were also scared because they knew the signs of a criminal organization. They knew what was going on. And the marijuana economy in Maine is big. It's bigger than blueberries, potatoes, and lobsters. So there are enough people in the industry who are talking about this. And so there was this kind of secret hidden knowledge of what was happening in this state, but it was like, you can't talk about it.
Well, here's a story you probably haven't heard a lot about. The Chinese mafia is exploiting rural America to create a drug empire. This is not available on cable news. The network's not telling you about this, but it's totally real. Communist-affiliated drug gangs destroying parts of the United States, the parts that Washington ignores, to sell drugs, laundering money, and building a black market network inside this country's most beautiful but least served areas. We've got a brand new documentary on this. It's called High Crimes, the Chinese Mafia Takeover of Rural America. It's available now on tuckercarlson.com. It's excellent. The purchase of churches and schools to aid the operation, the jerry-rigging of power boxes to steal electricity, foreign pesticides, collusion with the Mexican cartels. It's unbelievable. By the way, one of the drug houses is like walking distance from my house. I didn't know that. It's a layered and fascinating story. Head to tuckercarlson.com to watch now. We think you'll love it. I'm a little bit confused for a couple. There's so many questions. I'm glad we have time. Maine has effectively legalized marijuana. Okay. So their weed, and some kind of criminal enterprise has funded all these weed dispensaries, medical marijuana dispensaries. They're in every town. They're the only new buildings in most towns, as you well know. And the idea, the way that was sold, your dog's getting mad about this.
Yes, he's very upset with what's happening to Maine.
The way this was sold to Maine voters was, we're going to take the crime out of marijuana. Like, we're going to regulate it. It's going to, if you want marijuana, if you want cannabis, you can go and get it. It's got no weird chemicals.
It's going to be safer.
It's going to be safer.
Yeah. And the tax money too. The tax money is, our schools are going to be so much better. Our streets will be safer. There'll be so much more revenue for all these
bigger
wonderful
group of
things.
liars than the marijuana peddlers. They're liars. I know a lot of them. They're liars. Anyway, whatever. This is the opposite of what was promised, correct?
Yes. I think that we unintentionally created a system that was so ripe for exploitation by criminal groups that you have to wonder if it was done intentionally.
So, because why would they? There's so much marijuana in Maine. Everyone grows marijuana in Maine. Its value's fallen dramatically. I don't know what they're selling an ounce of weed for right now, but you can stuff your mattress for
$40 or $50.
That's crazy.
If it's triad weed.
$40 or $50 an ounce.
If it's triad weed.
I don't smoke marijuana, but I did as a child. In 1983, it was $100 an ounce.
Yeah.
And that in 1983 dollars. So it's dramatically cheaper than it ever was. So what's the motive for illegal weed grows?
Well, they have the advantage of not paying taxes, no regulatory compliance. They're not paying their labor a significant amount of money. They're using pesticides and fungicides illegally that reduce their product loss. They can also export marijuana. About 2/3 of the product that they grow illegally leaves the state of Maine. Legal growers aren't allowed to do that because it's not federally legal yet. So they can sell into black markets like New York for a period of time, which was a black market, early on into Maine's development of triad weed. Later it was a gray market where they legalized it, but didn't really have a formal system for the sale of marijuana products. So anytime you can bring your product from Maine to a black market state, you're going to get 3 or 4 times the price. And this is something that a Chinese criminal organization can do, but the mom and pop trying to run a cannabis edible store or whatever can't do. They can't export their product out of state. So if you have all these built-in cost advantages, you can get a significant amount of money off of it. And they also consider it very low risk. And they were right to consider it low risk. Because when the state of Maine legalized marijuana, just like what happened in Washington State and in Oklahoma and in California, it changes the culture in law enforcement. We sent a signal to law enforcement that marijuana was no longer a problem. It was legal. People voted, stopped paying attention to marijuana, and cops who, busted significant marijuana busts were kind of laughed at. Like, that's just pot. That's legal. Why are you doing that? Fentanyl is the priority. And we also have all kinds of legal marijuana grows happening, and that functions as camouflage for what the Chinese are doing. So it might not be the most lucrative activity, but it's pretty damn lucrative, but it's low risk, very low risk for them. Because at worst, they're gonna, you're gonna get arrested, you're gonna get your mugshot taken, you're gonna get $2,000 bail, and you'll be released, and probably never have to show up at court, go to New York, get a new driver's license with a new name, come back and find a different marijuana grow to work at. So really no one suffers any consequences from this incredibly lucrative activity that they're engaged in.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.